Welcome to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I feature Olympians, CEOs, disruptors, authors, professional athletes, and the best of the best, where they share their stories of resilience with my lens on leadership and culture. Let's get started. Greetings and welcome to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I am delighted to bring to you our guest today. 3 things you're going to learn in this episode. Number 1, how you can have more influence. Number 2, what career insurance is. And number 3, why being an author can change your life. Denise Brosseau has had the unlikely expertise of being a thought leader about thought leadership. She is the best-selling author of Ready to Be a Thought Leader and the CEO of the Thought Leadership Lab. And her clients have included Genentech, PayPal, eBay, and many other Fortune 500 companies. She began her own accidental thought leadership journey as the founding CEO of the Forum for Women Entrepreneurs, the first trade association for women building venture fundable businesses. She grew FWE to 7 cities across the US, and she also co-funded Springboard, the first venture capital conference for women entrepreneurs, which has since led to over $39 billion in funding for women-founded and led businesses. For this work, she was recognized as a champion of change by the White House. Today, Denise is an international keynote speaker and workshop leader, and her LinkedIn learning courses on thought leadership have been viewed more than 200,000 times by people around the world. Denise, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here, Lyndsay.
Oh, it is a thrill and a joy. I'm so happy you're here. So I start every show the same, and I always ask our guests to share a little more of their story. Could you do that?
Sure. I've had an eclectic journey. I am not one of those who kind of grew up at the age of 10 and knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. I think I've had one of those journeys where everything built to the next thing, but it makes more sense looking backwards. I grew up in upstate New York, IBM family. My father kindly got us transferred right to Paris for 3 years, which I think changed the whole trajectory of my life. As a little side note, I was just back there last month, and it just makes me such a happy place for me. And went off to college at Wellesley and came via DC, came out to California over 30 years ago now. And it's just been a dream place for me. I, first of all, love the weather, but secondly, love the people. I'm really a person who loves innovation and technology and all things entrepreneurship. And this has been a place where I've been able to thrive in all of those areas. So started my career in tech. And then in the middle of my career, founded this trade association for women with a couple of friends from business school. And we really were focused on why were women not getting any money? Why women not getting any venture funding? And, it's gotten better since then, but the data is still...
We got a long way to go still.
Lyndsay. You can feel like you can dedicate a lot. I dedicated 10 years of my career to really focusing on doubling down on that issue. And then started my present business because I was really thinking, what was the essential element that shifted my career? And it really was this accidental thought leadership journey. I became this go-to person in the field of women's entrepreneurship and had many, many opportunities to influence and impact in an area that mattered deeply to me. But I had no idea what I was doing, right? I didn't have a strategy. I didn't have a plan. And so I really dedicated the last number of years to really documenting what it takes to take that journey from leader to thought leader with a strategy, with a plan, with a thoughtful career understanding of why this matters to you, but also to the world. Mm-hmm. And so that's really what I do now. I work with senior leaders, mostly women, and I really focus on that transition point of understanding that you can be that pebble in the pond for others. You can make a difference in your field, in your career, and in the world. And that's what lights me up.
I love that. So let's start with thought leadership. Let's dig in. I mean, I think I see on LinkedIn all the time, everybody's calling themselves a thought leader. What separates someone with some good ideas from a thought leader?
Yeah. And it's so funny because when my book came out, 10 years ago now, thought leadership was very not in fashion. And you wouldn't dream of calling yourself a thought leader back then. Very much you were poo-pooed. And also, by the way, then and now, you shouldn't be calling yourself a thought leader if someone else hasn't, but we'll leave that aside for the moment. I look at this as thought leadership is about building trust. Thought
Mm.
leadership is about being that pebble in the pond, trying to influence change, and also being that person who is amplifying big ideas, not simply for the purpose of look at me. But as I've said in every talk I've ever given, thought leadership is not just about being known. It's about
Mm.
being known for making a difference.
Yeah.
This is really about trust, building trust in the world in positive ways by sharing our expertise, by bringing forward what the best of the best is in our field of expertise and in the area where we work, and doing that work on purpose
Mm.
for the good of not just ourselves, but hopefully for others.
So, if someone were to assert themselves as a thought leader, what would be some ways that they should go about making sure that that branding is consistent with, you know, their whole person? Because, I see people with this robust social strategy and they're not connected to the work that they're doing. It's just a lot of good ideas and flash in the pan. So, can you dig a little into that? I'd just love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, I think Lindsay, it's dangerous now in some ways because there's so many tools that can make your social so fabulous, but you're right, it can have a complete disconnect to your deeper
Yeah.
why in the world. And so I'm with my clients, I'm really working from the beginning on the foundational elements. The foundational elements are what is the niche in which you want to play, and not 50 and not even necessarily three. It might be two, might have one that is very much your personal and one that is very much your business life, but you shouldn't have many more than that because it's confusing to everybody. And secondly, it's really thinking about what is the future that I want to bring about. I call it the what if future. For me, when I was running my nonprofit, it was what if women got 51% of the venture capital funding in the world? Like that was my end goal. We're far from it. It's been many years. And so it should be something big. It should be something that feels a bit unachievable, but it's also inspiring and it brings others along. So for me, those are the two starting points, like really helping people to think through, and I invite everyone to think for themselves. What is it? Where do I play? And secondly, in service to what? Like where does the world need to go? And then really making sure you're aligning your efforts to that and not being everywhere or
Yeah.
everything to everyone.
Yeah, I think that's important. So can we talk a little bit about the work you did with Springboard and your dear friends with Sam Horn, who's a big friend of the show. She's been on twice, and we talked a little bit about it there, but I'd love for the folks that haven't heard her, how did that start? What did it become? Because $39 billion is not small, and that's for women. So, like, is it still going? What's happening with Springboard? Talk to us about that.
Okay, so we started with four people, really four or five people at the very beginning. And for me, I was running my nonprofit in Silicon Valley. We were doing good things. We had a couple of chapters. We were transforming some lives, but I was running a nonprofit. And one day I got a call from a woman at the National Women's Business Council, which was really working on women's access to capital across the United States. And I'd never heard of them. They called me up and they said, we have this idea to do this first of its kind event, a venture conference just featuring women. We have a date, we have a place, and we understand you might be the partner in Silicon Valley to do this. And I'm like, that sounds like a great idea. Okay. And the woman said I took like 2 minutes and I was in, right? And the truth was it was completely aligned with our vision of what needed to happen. And so there was four of us across the United States. And I ran the first conference here in Silicon Valley. And the second one was held in Boston, the third in DC, the fourth was here in California. After the fourth conference, and I want to step back for a minute and tell you kind of how that first came about. But after the fourth conference, we did what I never had understood was important, which is we wrote it all down. We created the Springboard manual. Like, what does it take to put on a venture conference? And it was everything I had learned the hard way, which was, how do you beat those doors down? How do you get people to say yes? And who are your natural allies, and who are you going to need to bring on board and convince? Honestly, when I was running the Forum for Women Entrepreneurs, I thought that my natural allies in doing the first venture conference were going to be the women venture capitalists in Silicon Valley. Now, there weren't very many. Maybe there was 12 at the time. And the decision was we should host a nice dinner. We'll host it at one of the women's houses that we knew, and we'll invite them all. We'll tell them all about the program. And so everybody flew in, the other 3 people, and we put this beautiful event on. And then I got up with my microphone and I'm like all excited, and I'm telling everybody, hey, we're going to do this first of its kind, blah, 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 right? Got my whole spiel. And I got nothing. I got nothing from the audience. Like, there was no enthusiasm, there was no support. And I remember just this feeling of dread, thinking, how in the heck are we going to pull this off if we can't get these people on board? And I sort of flailed around for a minute or two. And one of the women from the audience got up and she took the microphone out of my hand and she said, ladies, get on board. Everybody kind of sat up, and I was kind of, what? And this woman, Helen, who I had not known all that well, but she'd been involved with what I'd been working on for a couple of years, and she was one of them. And what I really learned from this was that this is about bringing on the champions early, right? This isn't about me trying to champion to people who don't really know me that well. It's finding one of the insiders, finding one of those people to be the person who's speaking. If I had known better, I would have prepared her better. She did a fine job. But, almost every one of them got involved from then on.
Wow.
And she really spoke their language. She talked about what they had been saying to her privately about how important something like this was and how hard it was to get men in their firms to pay any attention to women and how often women would get overlooked, et cetera. They had the same things that I knew.
Yeah.
But they needed someone else to kind of invite them. And I think that that's one of the lessons, and along with many others that I learned from that journey. I got a lot of no's. But what I realized was, and sometimes the more no's you get, the better idea it is. And people are fighting you because it is either inevitable, or B, because they really like the system the way it is, which means you need to
100%. Right? Well, and I think that had to be some of the reluctance too, right? It's new, it seems risky, it's unproven. Why do I want to go invest there? When I've always known it one way. But this is what disruptors do. And, figuring out a different approach, a different way to lift others up, I think is so smart. So talk about what is career insurance, and does it have anything to do with what we did at Springboard?
Well, career insurance for me is taking that journey from leader to thought leader. And here's why I say that. Really being that person who becomes the go-to resource in their field of expertise. People want to hire thought leaders. People want to work for thought leaders. People want to work with thought leaders. One of the guys I interviewed for my book was an early executive at Intuit. And he talked about how, he was in the very early days of some of the transformational data technologies that were coming in for the kind of work that he was doing, and how he was fighting every day to get some of these tools into Intuit, and how hard he was because the tools weren't that good, people weren't that accepting, et cetera. So he started getting out and talking about what he was learning, and he told about how 2 people convinced him that he should do a blog. And even years ago, he thought, oh, there's thousands of blogs. Why would anybody read it? Just like with podcasts, right? Why should I do this?
Yeah.
But he did it. And he tested it with a small group of 10 people and his wife, right? And he said that people kind of liked what he had to say. And so he went wider. And soon he found that that his blog was being read by some of the top CIOs, et cetera. But more importantly, the HR team came to him and they said, you got to keep doing whatever you're doing. Because people were coming in to the HR to interview because they wanted to work with him.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the thing we forget, is that this is about sharing our ideas. This is about talking about what's hard about what we do. This is about trying to give people what I call the guide from the side perspective instead of that sage from the stage. I've got it all figured out. But
Right.
being that guide from the side, people want to be with that person. They want that kind of energy. They want that kind of leadership. And I think if we can create a culture like that in our organizations where we push forward those who are willing to do the work, thought leadership, the whole organization is better off. They're more trusted in the field. They get
Yeah.
better order of clientele. I'm sure you've seen this in the
Oh
work you do.
yeah. And the word that was propping up to me as you were speaking was trust. And you said it before. This is all about building trust. And whether you are the sage from the stage or the guide from the side, either way, you have to build trust, but you're going to do it a lot better being in the trenches with someone and earning that trust and showing that you show up, you're there for them. I think leadership is not that different. You have to show up with your heart. You have to be authentic. You have to really relate to your people and build that trust and psychological safety so people can do the jobs they were hired for. There's nothing worse than being put in a corner and being told you're doing everything wrong or being micromanaged and then say, now go shine. Well, no one's going to shine if they're micromanaged ever. So yeah, not great. So let's change gears a little bit. I know you're an author, and I want to talk a little bit about one of the things we said at the top. Why does being an author have the potential to change your life?
I think it's two pieces. First, the before, and second, the after, right? When you are actually giving yourself permission to write a book, you are spending the time to document the lessons that you've learned in your life. And for me, this is a time when you're really internalizing them. This is a time when maybe you're learning them all over again.
Yeah.
And that can have a profound impact on your career because you are thinking, what is it I know? What has worked? And by the
Right.
way, what hasn't in my career? What are the things that I deeply understand now that I didn't understand before? And what am I doing, I hope, with a good book is to help others make
That's
whatever the
right.
journey we took faster, better, whatever it is we're trying to do for people. So I think the first part is the writing of it, really trusting that this is an important process and you take the time and you do it well. Not write a book in a weekend with AI. That kind of crap needs to be eliminated immediately. I'm so infuriated with people who market to me and say, we can help you write your book in a weekend in AI. I'm like, you should all be fired. Like, you should all
Mhm.
close your companies tomorrow. But leave that aside, doing the hard work. That's the first half. The second half is then once the book is out in the world, I run an email list for women authors, and one of the things I've seen, 415 women right now in the group, is how much this has helped them get a seat at the table, help
Yep.
them enter rooms that they didn't otherwise get to enter, help them be more influential and impactful in a way that up until then in their career, no one really knew what they knew, right? They didn't really have that chance to be that
Yeah.
guide. And I think that's the magic. But also, I just got back from a, all expenses paid trip to London where I got to do a workshop. And I'm like, that wouldn't have happened
That
without a book.
worked. Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I mean, when you set out, first of all, I never set out to be an author. I never thought I was going to write a book. I had tons of stories to tell, and that's what make up my keynotes. And being a natural storyteller works pretty well for the style that I like and the style that I learn from. But I really did not anticipate the hardest part of writing the book was letting it go. And I think, everyone talks about the process of actually writing it and how some days you get stuck and how that's so hard. But the piece that was hardest for me was releasing it out into the world and going, I hope it's well received. I hope it's good. I hope that they like it. And yeah, I mean, most people write books and they don't become millionaires off of their books. If you are a famous person and you write a memoir, that's great. If you're not a famous person, don't write a memoir. That was the advice I was given. And I think it's still pretty true. But the other piece that I would mention, and I think you're a speaker. So for me, when I speak, having a book as a leave behind or having a book where you can sign for people, there is that added layer of permanence from your keynote. And that I think is hugely instrumental. So for any keynotes out there, that's something you should consider. Would you agree with that?
I would not only agree, but I would add to it that there's also a bit of an ego piece when somebody comes over and asks you to sign their book.
Yes.
It's pretty darn good, right?
It's
It really
really
is sort
great.
of a validation of all the work of your life in a way that you don't get otherwise. So
Oh my gosh.
I honestly recommend it, even just for that brief moment when you get
So
to sign.
true. So it truly feels good. And guys, if you are listening and you know authors, I mean, most entrepreneurs, there's tons of authors in our world. And if somebody says to me, "Hey, I just bought your book. I'm so excited. I can't wait for you to sign it." Oh my gosh. That is the greatest compliment. And the only thing that comes in second to that is I just listened to your podcast, I just subscribed and I wrote you a great review. Like that's also really good. So both of those things are welcome. Please go check out Denise's book. Please check out mine. But those are really great ways to show support. So, so
And do
Denise,
an Amazon review.
yes, those are huge. I don't think people realize how important reviews in general are.
And we're
Reviews
always
for books,
promising and not doing
review
them. Yeah.
reviews for books carry weight. They really do, because if someone's on the fence about buying your book, or maybe they were just thinking they do the Kindle, but then they see a great review, they actually physically want the book, that's way better. So those reviews really do carry a lot of weight. So what inspires you? Totally different topic.
What inspires me is people fighting against the odds and achieving their dreams. That
Mm,
and part of that is the stories, as you say, being a
yeah.
good storyteller and being able to tell those stories. But well, some of my favorite podcasts are the ones like yours, where we're bringing forward people who we wouldn't have otherwise heard from
Mhm.
and getting to hear what was their unexpected journey, because that it inspires me to believe that more things are possible.
Oh
Because
yeah.
if you read the news every day, you think the whole world's gone to heck in a handbasket. But when you hear these
Oh yeah.
individual stories, it's like, ah, that keeps me going.
Yeah, well, you're the 128th story that we've been telling on this show. And, my hope was to inspire people and to make them want to be better leaders and make a better impact in the world. So if it wasn't one of the 127 people before you, maybe it's this one that
I
inspires
hope.
them to take that leap and write that book or jump in and try and get some funding for their business. So, what would you like your legacy to be?
I think the most important thing for me is being a great friend
Hmm.
and building community. Those are the two things that I think I do very well. And for me, I've built community after community after community throughout my life. And they have touched and moved people's careers forward, their lives forward, built friendships for them. And that that's good enough for me. It doesn't have to be billions of
Yeah.
dollars. It really has to be a community that matters and people who stand for each other and stand with each other. That's what I love to build.
Oh, I agree with that so much. And finding the right community of people can truly change your life, and expose you to people that are waiting for you and need you. So that's super, super beautiful. So what's next for Denise?
Well, it's been a lovely last few months. September, October, November were completely crazy. And now I'm sort of riding into Christmas with a few fun holidays. But I think for me, what's next is this author group that I run. It's an all volunteer project, nothing paid about it, but we really we've created and found a place for each other to get the support we need, because we all think writing a book, you put it out and miracles happen, but actually it's a heck of a lot of hard work, right? And this group is all about how do you market and sell your book. And
Mm,
we couldn't find any place, my friend and I who started it, we couldn't find any place to get that help. So I created it with her, and
so
it's been running
smart.
for 10 years. And now we create events and programs and monthly seminars all on how can we be better women authors,
That's
not
amazing.
better women authors, but how can we be better at marketing our books
So
as women?
who is that community right for? Is it people who've released their books and maybe haven't seen enough sales, or people that are about to release a book? Who joins?
Usually it's about to release a book. It's not somebody who someday I want to write a book. Those are
Ah,
not our people,
got
right?
it.
who's got a contract already underway. The book is mostly done, and they've got a few months from now or 6 months from now, their book is releasing, and they got to think through all that stuff that nobody tells you. We tell you, like, here's the
So
stuff.
much. That's such a great point. There's so much, and there's so many different ways to bring a book to life, but there's so much out there that you could do, and not everything is important, but depending on who you talk to, they might tell you 100 things are important and you don't have a lot of time. So you have to prioritize what's really going to make the biggest impact. And do you do mostly online or all online, or do you do stores, and do you do a book signing, and what is the impact of that, and how expensive is that? Because I think people don't understand, A, it's expensive to write a book. It can be. And if you self-publish, where does that lead you? And you still have to do things that are going to promote the book. And just because you wrote the book doesn't mean it's going to sell itself. So yeah, there's a lot in there.
Yeah, and all those trade-offs all the way along. I love that one of the things our community is primarily is an email list, and people post. So this past weekend, somebody got an offer to do something with Forbes, and it costs X thousands and thousands of dollars. And she's trying to decide, she's got a book.
Is that right for me?
Done.
Yeah.
Is that the right? And so she gets over the weekend. I was just watching all these emails come to her with answers on here's how I think about it. Here's what, here's why hybrid was better. Here's why self-publishing is better. And that it's so juicy to see expertise being shared in a way that's not about ego, and it's not about, you're helping me because I'm trying to get something from you. These are just all of us. We rolled up our sleeves and we did it, and we're trying to help the next person do it a little better than we did.
That's great.
And not stumble and fall, because many of us did. I mean, there were so many things that I think to myself, how come no one ever told me?
Yeah. Well, and when you go through a publisher, you trust they're going to tell you everything, but they might have an approach that is not the same as another publisher's approach. And a lot of them have very strong opinions about what's the right thing to do, and it might not be what you
The
need.
right thing for your book. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do people find you, and how do people find that community?
Well, the way people find me is through my LinkedIn page, which is Denise Brosseau, and then, of course, my website, thoughtleadershiplab.com, but also my book, Ready to be a Thought Leader. And as you mentioned at the top of the hour, the course that I created, I have now 2 courses on LinkedIn Learning. People who really want to dig in, these courses were created as sort of an adjunct to the book, but for people who want to dig in further, there's lots of great exercises and so on. And then if people are coming out with a book in the near future and it's a business book, then they really should reach out to me through one of those 2 places.
Amazing. Well, guys, you heard it here. Denise is a total rock star, a huge resource. Please follow her on LinkedIn, connect with her, tell her you heard her here, and join her community if you are writing a book. Having that kind of support is priceless. I wish I had that when I wrote mine. And guys, if you liked what you heard, please go subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave a 5-star review at Apple or Spotify. As we said before, they are so meaningful. Denise, thank you for being a fabulous guest, and I hope you come back.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Everyone, take care of yourselves and go lead with heart. Have a great day. Are you ready to elevate your leadership style and create an exceptional workplace that stands out from the crowd? I'm here to introduce you to a game-changing resource that will transform the way you lead and shape your company culture. It's time to embrace the power of top-down culture. This practical guide empowers your leadership for lasting success, helping you create a workplace where everyone thrives. Get top-down culture today, and let's reshape the future of leadership together. Thanks for listening to this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel or consider leaving a 5-star review and a great rating at Spotify or Apple. Thank you so much for your support. Have a great day.